buying real estate without ever seeing it definitely sounds crazy. But that's actually how I acquired my third investment property. So let's talk about it. I had just acquired a house that I grew up in the year before. And I was actually in the process of creating like a series LLC in Illinois and trying to buy a property there. So that was supposed to be my third property actually. And we could talk about that in the next session because that was a whole thing. Like I started the process in 2021, and I think it was May 2021. And I didn't actually end up getting that Chicago property until spring of 2022. No, maybe summer. It was summer or spring of 2022. Craziness. Anyway, that's another story for another day. But while I was trying to get that Chicago property in the Illinois LLC, I ended up going on a trip to Greece. Now, I know this sounds like it's not related, but it's super related. So I had this friend from college and we had reconnected, and she was having a birthday trip for her, I think it was her 30th or 28th birthday or something like that. And she wanted to take this huge trip to Greece, and it was going to be like 14 girls. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely down. Like, I'm definitely into travel and all that stuff. So I go to Greece, and mind you, like, at this point, I have my condo. I have the condo that I lived in, but that I was Airbnb-ing and renting out the rooms. So I had that, and then I had this house that my mom gave to me. And then I'm trying to get this Illinois property. So I'm in Greece, still dealing with this Illinois property situation and this realtor who just was not, it wasn't giving. But like I said, we can talk about that later. So I'm in Greece talking to people, meeting these new people because she had a bunch of friends and I didn't actually know any of them. So I'm meeting these people, we're all talking, having great conversations. We were in Greece for like 10 days and inevitably real estate came up. So they were super interested. Like I was pretty new to the journey in my mind. I had taken a course, and of course I had bought some properties, so I guess I was a bit further along than the other ladies were, but they were super interested. So we ended up talking a lot about real estate. But you know how it is, like you are around friends and you talk to people and everyone's all excited, but then when you get back home or you get back to reality, nobody really does anything. So honestly, I didn't really think anything of it. Like I didn't think anything would come of it. I just thought it was stimulating, engaging conversation. But actually, the friend who invited me, she reached out almost immediately after we got back from Greece and was like, "Hey, like, how we gonna do these properties together? Like, what's the plan? I'm trying to get in on this. I want to do Airbnb. I want to do this. I want to do that." And I was like, "Oh, like she really trying to do something." So we were talking about different locations, and she talked about how she did her residency in this small town in North Carolina. And I was like, I ain't never been to North Carolina. And so she was like, yeah, it's a small town, but the town is next to a military base, and there's a lot of traffic, whether it's from the hospital or, the military base. And I think it'll be a great location for like an Airbnb. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I've never been to North Carolina, but if the numbers seem to make sense, like I'm down. I was telling her like the only thing is I don't know like how to find out if the numbers make sense. And so she was saying that she had talked to this lady who does rental arbitrage, and the lady put her onto this software called AirDNA. And so she was like, we can just use this software to see if the property that we're looking at is going to be like, a good buy. And I was like, oh, okay, like I don't know how the software works or if it's accurate, but I'm down to try, and it's cool because we're doing it together. So the plan was to buy this property together and run it as an Airbnb. So we're having these discussions. It's about December 2021 at this time. So we were doing a lot of talking and planning, but like no real action was taken. And so January came and I was kind of like, all right, so are we doing this or what? Like, what's the plan? She was like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'm about to call the lender so we can get pre-approved. And so I call the lender, I do research and find agents or whatever. And literally, like, after I already submitted my application, she already submitted her application, she contacted me like, hey, I am thinking, I might want to just like do this first one on my own. I've never bought real estate before, and I kind of want to like get the experience on my own. And I was just like, bruh, because this is the thing. I initially recommended that she buy her own property first before buying with someone else. But she was just very adamant, like, no, 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 like we could do it together, blah, blah. And so hearing that was extremely annoying. And I was just like, you dragged me along this whole journey to get this property only to tell me that you're gonna take the advice that I initially gave you. Woosah. So I was like, fine, we can, do this separately or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I'm still gonna buy in North Carolina. Like, we already talked about this. We've already been researching this area. I'm going to buy here, I'm doing this, And so she was still planning to buy there as well. And so I was like, great, we're gonna be in the same market. We can support each other and go through this experience in a parallel way, even though we're not doing it exactly together. So I had already done the research on the different real estate agents. And so we already had an agent that we were in communication with. And so I just told the agent in the group chat, like, hey, we're actually going to buy 2 separate properties. The agent's probably like, cha-ching, jackpot. So, that's 2 houses. And all she had to do was contact those 2 clients. So that was good for her. But fast forward, I ended up not using that lender that we got pre-approved from. I just felt like the lender was not super forthcoming and honest and transparent about the different options available. And so I opted to go for another lender, but she ended up staying with that lender and we used the same real estate agent. So I found this cute townhouse, actually. It was 2-bed, 2.5 bath. It was listed for $132,500 in Fayetteville in North Carolina, which is the same town that she did her residency. And then she found a single family home not too far from where the townhome was. So we were literally in this process at the same time. When I was looking at the numbers though for the townhome, I felt like it would make more sense for me to actually rent it out to a long-term tenant than to do Airbnb. But I was so in love with this little townhome. Like, it was so cute to me. So I didn't want to give it up, but I was like, I think I might want to do a long-term rental instead of an Airbnb for this one. And she ended up still doing an Airbnb. But part of it too, like part of the reason that I decided to do long-term rental for that instead of Airbnb is, one, the numbers made more sense with long-term rental. The Airbnb could still work, but with the HOA fees and all that, it kind of got a little close to the profit margins I was looking for. And so the other thing was, I had taken out money from my HELOC to buy this property. So let's do a flashback. I had that condo and I refinanced it into this new product, which is like this home equity line of credit. And it was like a cash out home equity line of credit. So basically, I got a new line of credit, paid off my previous mortgage, and there was still money left over. So they just gave it to me in cash. It was like $20,000. So I had this $20,000 to use for this property, and then I had my separate money in a business bank account for that Illinois property. So I didn't really want to go over what I had set aside for this. And if I had done Airbnb, then I would have been way over what I budgeted for. So with the $132,500, I put down 10%, I think. And so that with closing costs brought me to like 18,000 something. And I was like, I don't have enough money to furnish this entire house and still be within my budget. Now I could come out of pocket, but I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to kind of keep it all in the same buckets of money, if that made sense. So anyway, fast forward. So I end up closing on the townhouse. She ends up closing on the house, and we closed within like a few days of each other, which was so awesome. And then I made a couple of updates to that property. So the vanity was super old, so I ended up getting a new vanity, and that amazing real estate agent actually installed it for me. But then when we installed the vanity, you know how like if you take a vanity off, behind it is like paint or tile or whatever is there. So when she moved the vanity, there was like a patch that was now uncovered and didn't match the paint. So she was like, "Ooh, okay, we can put in some backsplash to kind of cover that so it doesn't look tacky." So she did that for me. I put in the appliances and everything. The house was not super updated. Like the stairs still had carpet, but like the living room was hardwood, and the kitchen was tile. And then it had these very interesting bright red bedroom doors, which I just loved. I was like, I don't know whose idea this was, but it's great. And then the upstairs rooms, both rooms were upstairs, and both rooms had their own bathroom. But then in addition to that, there was a bathroom downstairs. So I thought that was super cool. So I made a couple of little changes. I installed a security system, and of course I had to get internet to install the security system. So those were like some of my startup costs. So there was like the 18,000 something for the down payment and closing. And then it was the vanity, I think cost me like $1,400. And then I think I had to get a new toilet as well, which was like $200. And then I had to do a deep cleaning. I think that was like another 200. The alarm system was $90 a month, and then the internet was about $80 a month. So those were some of my initial costs. So it basically took up the whole $20,000. So it was perfect. So I love that. And then I hired a property management company to manage the property, and this was actually a referral from the real estate agent. Now, not all referrals are good referrals. So like she had a good experience and had a previous client who had a good experience, but my experience with this property management company was horrible. Like in the beginning, they were fine. They found a tenant. They were really responsive in the beginning, actually, but as time went on, I realized just how unorganized they were, and their systems were just broken. So, and part of it was on me as well. Like this was my first property out of state, actually, and I hadn't even seen it. So like January 2022, I made the offer in January 2022, closed in February, and literally did not see that property until the following year. So I never met this property management company. I had never even met the real estate agent. So all this was virtual. This was all like, FaceTime, videos, whatever. But they were really responsive in the beginning. And that's really important when you're investing out of state. Like you need people who are responsive. So in the beginning, they were responsive, and that was the impression I got. I'm like, oh, like, they're on their stuff. They're a responsive company. But throughout the process, when the girls stopped paying rent, like they were not responsive to me, which is a problem because you're supposed to be collecting rent on my behalf. But then they were making it seem like she wasn't responsive, and I didn't even know who to believe. So like I didn't have any contact with the actual tenant. I didn't find the tenant. I didn't place the tenant. The tenant's lease was not in my name. So the tenant doesn't know who I am, at this point. So my only recourse is contacting the property management company. Of course, I have boots on the ground, so I had that real estate agent who could go check on things for me, or like, pop up at the property management company's office, which she did. But I personally, was too far away to go do that kind of thing in a cost-effective way. So eventually, later in that year, the tenant hadn't paid rent for like 2 months. And I was like, bro, what are you doing? Evict her. Like, what are we talking about? And they were like, oh, we're trying to work something out, but she's not responsive or whatever. They were like, how long do you want us to give her to respond? before we start the eviction process. I was like, you can give her a few weeks. Like, I don't want to evict her, but if she's not willing to work with us, then she leaves us no choice. So that was I'll just say I ended up evicting her and it worked out. I ended up getting a new tenant at the end of that year. When I say it worked out, I mean I got her out quickly and got a new tenant in quickly. But I still have yet to recoup the funds for the 2 months that she didn't pay rent. So another story for another day. But that was my third property acquisition, and I look forward to sharing the next one with you.